Hi guys, welcome back aboard good old Athena. This week it is finally time for me to install our new Starlink internet connection. I am very excited about that. In this video we'll go through the installation process and we'll also touch on why Starlink might not be the best option for you if you're on a cruising boat, and we'll also mention a cheaper 4G alternative if you're cruising around Europe. My name is Mess, this is my wife Ava. I've spent the last 5 years on a somewhat extensive refit of our 1987 Warrior 38 named Athena. That was a DIY fun-packed adventure complete with a very extensive osmosis treatment, building a new rudder using vacuum infusion, rebuilding the entire deck, gutting and subsequently rebuilding most of the interior, painting the topsides, and a ton of other projects. The summer of 2021 we started cruising full time. Now we're finally ready to begin our adventure. We're going to cover some different topics in this video, and maybe not all of the topics are of interest to you, so I've included chapters down below so you can see which portion of the video covers what topic, so in case you want to skip ahead to something, you can do that. Because we're cruising full time, I ordered Starlink to be delivered at my parents' address and then had them ship it to us. So this packaging has been through 2 rounds of shipping, which is why it's looking a little wrecked. I've ordered Dishy, the dish, which you can't really do anything without that, so you kind of need that. But I've also ordered 2 optional extras, the Ethernet adapter and a mount. Starlink does not currently offer any real marine mounts for their dishes, so you either have to take one of their residential mounty thingies and have to kind of make that work on your boat, or you have to come up with your own solution. The one I've got here is called the short wall mount, and as you can see on the drawing here, it's designed to go on the end of a building, but I think this will work fairly well on our arch. This installation here about Athena is kind of maybe a temporary one, because the way I'm going to mount this, we will have some shading on our solar panels, which is not ideal. Now, when we're somewhere where I can find a good stainless guy, I do have an idea for a different type mount that won't cause any shading on the solar panels, but yeah, this is the best I can do for now. If you want to see how a bunch of people have installed Starlink on their boat, there is a great Facebook group called Starlink on Boats. I'll include a link for that down in the description. If we put aside the mount stuff here, the other optional box I ordered was the Ethernet adapter. If you want to use your existing router and have Starlink on your existing Wi-Fi inside of the boat, well, then the easiest way of doing that is with this guy. And of course, last but not least, there is Dishy itself. The dish comes with the included stand here, which we won't need. I've seen some people do some very temporary installs with that on their boat by screwing it into the boat, but yeah, this is the dish itself. In the bottom of the box is the included router. This is also what powers Dishy, so for now at least, unless you do some kind of custom PoE injector to power Dishy, then you also do need the router even if you are using your own router. The router is powered off of AC, not DC, sadly. When Dishy is running, I think it consumes something like 35 watts, so it's not a lot. But you will need an inverter to be able to run this on your boat. There are some people working on custom PoE injectors that will run on 12 to 24 volts. Those are not being sold yet, so for now I think the best option is just to stick with the included router and wait for those PoE injectors to become available. On a fun little side note, this is the manual that comes in the box. I haven't seen anything else in there yet, so there's just 3 steps. Connect Dishy to router and download app. I mean, if you can make a manual that's this simple and it's actually enough to cover the functionality of the product, I think you've designed a pretty good product. The router goes inside of the boat where it's nice and dry, and Dishy of course goes on the outside. So I'll have to run this cable in through the cockpit coaming or somewhere like that. Unfortunately, Starlink uses this very proprietary looking connector here, which is also kind of a weird shape. So to get that through the cockpit coaming is going to have to be a pretty decent size hole. If you're a bit of a tech junkie like myself, or you like hanging out in spots where there are no cellular coverage but still want internet, then I think Starlink is a great option for you. But having said that, Starlink might not be the best option for you if you're cruising on a boat, especially not if you're going long distance. If you're considering Starlink, there are 3 different options. There is residential, RV, and maritime. If you are a regular person like Ava and myself, residential or RV are the only ones you're really going to consider, because Maritime has an upfront cost of $10,000 and then it is $5,000 a month. Of course, the big upside to Maritime is that it will work offshore, but it's $5,000 a month. That is unattainable for most cruisers. So for us normal folk, I think the choice is either residential or RV. Both of those have an upfront hardware cost of $600, and then residential is $110 per month and RV is $135 per month. But if you want to use your residential Starlink away from your home address, then you have to add portability, in which case I think that is $25, which would put it right up at $135. The big upside to RV is that you can pause it if you don't need it. These products, I'm sure, are going to change over time, and something else that I hope is going to change over time is the terms of service, because if you are cruising long distance on a boat, especially if you're going from one continent to another, Starlink might potentially not be the best option for you. These are the terms of service for use of Starlink, and if we scroll down to section 5.3, that is for the RV version specifically, but there is a similar section in the residential version. So if we go to 5.3, it says Starlink for RV can only be used within the same continent as the registered shipping address. And also, if you use Starlink for RV services for more than 2 months in a country that is different from your shipping address, you will be required to move your registered address to a new location or purchase additional Starlink to maintain service. I do not believe Starlink are actively enforcing these conditions in their terms of service as of right now, but they are in the terms of service, which is a little bit scary for a long distance cruiser, especially here in Europe, where the countries are so small that it's so easy to jump from one to another, and then you would only have 2 months in that new country, and then you potentially could get into some kind of weird situation. So yeah, those are just some things to be aware of in the terms of service. Like I said, it doesn't seem like Starlink are currently enforcing those rules, but Starlink is still very new, and there's a lot of people cruising around here that are slowly starting to come up on that 2-month limit, so it'll be exciting to see what happens. But if you're looking for a cheap alternative and you don't want to have to worry about these two somewhat weird conditions in terms of service, then 4G is probably your best option. On the topic of 4G, last November in Gosport I installed this guy, the Yacht Router Mini, along with 2 high-quality antennas on our solar arch to provide us with long-range 4G or cellular internet. My experience with the Yacht Router has been a little bit of a mixed bag, a little bit of a love-hate relationship. On the positive side, for instance, on the way here from the UK, we had a usable internet connection up until I think around 26 nautical miles from the shore, which that is pretty impressive and way further than our cell phones would allow us to have a connection. Now for the not so good news, because life at anchor or in a marina with the Yacht Router Mini has been not super awesome. The connection to the internet does not seem to be stable, so multiple times a day we will lose connectivity to the internet and it'll be gone for a minute or several minutes at a time. Now sometimes that seems to coincide with the Yacht Router trying to switch networks. Sometimes when I've logged into the little configuration app, I've seen weird error messages like not searching, not available, SIM failure, or just 2 little dots, or it's busy trying to connect to a new network. The other aspect where the Yacht Router has disappointed me a little bit has been in terms of speeds. This is not a 5G product, it's 4G, but it's a Cat 11 radio, so we should still be seeing decent speeds, or at least I thought so. On the very best of the good days, we've seen speeds in the range of 10 to 15 megabits per second, which I don't think is that impressive. And we've tried with different cellular network providers, we've tried in different locations, but yeah, that seems to be the upper range of what we've seen. I am but a mere mortal software developer. I'm not a professional network or a cellular guy, so I don't know if the speeds we've been seeing are what you typically would expect with a Cat 11 radio under the circumstances we've been in. So yeah, I don't know, but the speeds are not really my main concern. I would take a slightly slower but more stable connection any day, just as long as it's more stable. In an attempt to figure out what was going on, I went out and I purchased this little guy. This is Teltonica's RUT 955. This is a A little bit of a David and Goliath situation. The Yacht Router Mini is 1,600 euros. This is 300 euros. This has a Cat 11 4G radio. This has a Cat 4 4G radio. So the two products are, well, very much not comparable. At least on paper, that is, because the actual real-world speeds I've seen from this little guy have been, yeah, slightly lower than the Yacht Router Mini, but not enough to justify the 5 times higher price. So yeah, this company, Teltonika, they have a bunch of newer products with higher speeds. They also have a 5G version available, stuff like that. So I just went with this because it was fairly cheap, and I've seen other people use it on boats. I want to have a chance to get to know the RUT 955 a little bit better on a daily basis before I do my final verdict. So from now on, this will be our daily driver to do a bit of a comparison. Now, what would be really cool is to do a comparison between some of the top of the line products from Teltonika and, for instance, Peplink with something like the Yacht Router to see, well, what works really well in the real world, but that will have to wait for another time. Before we get back to the Starlink stuff, there's one last little top tip I want to share for 4G internet connectivity here in Europe. So if you're cruising around your boat in Europe, you may have had this issue where you get to a new country, you got to find a new pay-as-you-go SIM card, so you go around to all the stores, you got to find the SIM with a decent amount of data for a decent amount of money, and then you just got to cross your fingers and hope whatever provider you've gone with actually have coverage in the areas you're going to be in. Well, back in May when we were in Cherbourg, a guy messaged us and told us about a little Spanish company called Tiekom. What's really cool about Tiekom is that they have a 300 gigabyte plan for 40 euros a month. But the really cool thing about that plan is that all of the 300 gigabytes are allowed for roaming in all of Europe. That's really cool because that means you don't have to hunt for new SIM cards in every new country. And also 300 gigabytes for 40 euros, that's pretty good. It's better than any of the pay-as-you-go plans we've seen. And also, in all the countries we've been in, we seem to be able to use all the cellular providers there with the Tiekom SIM card. I don't think Tiekom has anything to do with the instability or the somewhat sluggish speeds I've experienced on the Yacht Router, because we have tried SIM cards from a bunch of different companies in the Yacht Router, and it seems to be an issue with all of them. So yeah, I think Tiekom is a good choice. We have no affiliation with them, and what I'm saying here is simply just based on the experience we've had with them for the last 4 months. So yeah, Tiekom might be a good option for you. I'll pop in a link down below. The rain seemed to have let up for a brief second, so let's get on with the Starlink installation. My plan is to use this official mount here up on our arch. Like I said, that's not going to be the perfect installation. It is going to cause some shading on our solar panels, but yeah, we'll see how bad it gets. There are very few things that are as annoying as drilling stainless, but at least the mount is in place. I've got a cable gland from Scanstrut showing up tomorrow that I should be able to use to get this cable in through the cockpit coaming. So until then, I'm just gonna let the cable hang out in the companionway, but let's get everything hooked up and see if it works. I've downloaded the Starlink app on my iPhone, and yeah, I'm expecting this to be pretty simple. Ooh, connecting. Very exciting. What? This is freaking awesome. 226 megabits per second. Yes! How freaking awesome is that? 226 megabits per second and a ping of 65. That's pretty good. It's the next day. We've had Starlink running for a little under 24 hours now, and through the app on the phone you can follow along in the statistics and see how much outage you've got to see if the connection is up or down, and it's been rock solid and the speeds have been nothing short of amazing. I ended up using the Ethernet adapter here with a regular unmanaged switch instead of our router. The Starlink app, you can enable what Starlink calls bypass mode. That'll allow you to bypass the Starlink router and use your own router. Now, I'm not going to do that because the Wi-Fi in the Starlink router is way faster than the slightly older version of Wi-Fi in this cheaper one here. And also, by having the two separate, it'll be much easier for me to still play around with this guy and just do a little bit of daily testing. Now that I've had Starlink running for a bit and I know it works, I want to run the cable. Unfortunately, I can't use these round cable seals because the plug, because of its odd shape, won't fit through the opening here. So to run the cable in through the cockpit coaming, I'll have to use this cable seal. As you can see, the round cable seal here comes with plugs that already has holes in them. This one does not. So here you have to drill your own holes. I've removed the plug and put it in the freezer. That's one of the tips Scanstrut gives you to make it a little bit easier to drill those holes. In the instructions, Scanstrut tells you to use a drill that is 0.5 millimeter wider than the cable you want to seal around. The last time I had to drill a hole, I used that size, and I think it was a little bit on the small side. So I'm going to use a drill that's 1 millimeter bigger than the cable. It looks like the Starlink cable is around 7 millimeters, so I will try with an 8 millimeter drill. That was with an 8 millimeter drill, and the rubber thing here is not compressed yet. I just put it in here to be able to better hold onto it. And now we are left with a hole that is about 6.5 millimeters. Because of the somewhat enormous nature of the plug on the Starlink cable, I'm going to have to cut the rubber here to get the cable in there. That is exactly what Scanstrut does on their regular plugs, so I don't think that's going to cause any leaks. The cable fits neatly through here. Then we just got to get the rubber thing on there and then the top on there. And that should provide us with a nice watertight seal once everything is tightened down. That should look something like this. That looks very convincing. Using the base of the cable seal as a template, I marked the size of the hole. After a light bit of drilling, sawing and a bit of fine tuning, I had a hole the perfect size for the Starlink plug. I pre-drilled the 4 holes for the base, applied the sticky foam to the back of it and got it screwed in place. I ran the cable along the top of the arch and used some zip ties to secure it in place. After a brief interruption by Captain Dummkopf that put the top of the cable seal on the wrong way round, I managed to get everything assembled correctly. Then it was just a small matter of trimming all the zip ties and running the cable inside of the boat. Right now I've got the Starlink router and the Ethernet adapter and all that extra cable just crammed in this locker here behind me. It's not pretty, but it works. And it doesn't really make sense for me to spend a lot of time making it pretty before I know if we want to keep the Starlink router, maybe we want to use one of those DC PoE injectors instead. So yeah, we'll just give it a bit of time before I make it all pretty. Tomorrow we are leaving Brest and heading towards Spain. The weather is, it's going to be potentially okay. It's not going to be great, but yeah, hopefully it'll be a comfortable passage. And maybe, I have heard rumors about this, but maybe we'll get lucky and have a Starlink connection all the way across. That would be a lot of fun. If we do have a Starlink connection on the way to Spain, we'll do a couple of live updates for our patrons. That would be really fun. But yeah, we'll cross our fingers the passage will be fairly comfortable. And that is going to be the end of this week's video. We hope to see all of you guys back here aboard Athena next week for some sailing fun. As always, feel free to leave a comment down below, and don't forget, if you've enjoyed this video,
please remember to leave a like.
See you!